to another episode of Mzansi Madness. I have Tara Zulu to my left, who I know as a second AD, but who's also an actor, third AD, but who's also an actress and a poet, right? And to my right, I have Pags Sipumziwe Lutwaba. Is that correct?
That is 100%.
Is that your name? Okay,
That is
because
my
I
full
had to
name.
Google. We actually, because we literally just met the other day.
Sure.
Like it was like 3 days ago, and I came into a cafe and he was eating a hot dog, and then I just annoyed you for like an hour.
Well, that's
Just,
okay, we
like,
know each
talking
other. It was mutual annoyance. Yeah.
And then I asked him, super strange. I know you must have thought this is so strange.
No,
for me
well-
to like send you an email and be like, I know we literally just met 2 days ago, but do you want to join us?
This is how I meet most people actually most of the time. Through
That's
podcasts, and they invite me via
really?
email. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
All of my friends.
So Pags is also an actor and a voiceover artist,
Yes.
and anything
That's
else.
it.
I don't know.
That's
Okay,
the
well,
end
it's
of my
enough.
CV.
It's enough. I want to talk about stereotypes because South Africans love stereotypes so much. Like it's a constant thing. We're such a diverse people, but we all have these like mad ass opinions about each other, stereotypes about each other. I'm aware of the fact that stereotypes can be very problematic, destructive, dangerous even, because really, I mean, in a way, they do work in exactly the same way that racism works, right? It's like a blanket statement about a group of people based on like whatever.
When is a stereotype, and when is it a preference based on your personal experiences?
A preference. My
Yeah.
preference.
Like-
Wait, you're already in the dating thing now.
You're already in the dating thing. Okay, if we take
You see your agenda.
stereotypes like away from race, because I
Right.
get it in race, but like
Right.
in other instances outside of that, I guess dating fine. Like, how do you?
Look, I mean,
Preference.
I feel like a stereotype, if I can jump in. here.
Yeah, of course.
Madam Chair.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, yes. No, I feel like stereotypes fall under the category of categories, right? So it's just a way of classifying, and I think it just works generally with people. So you'll classify a particular group of people under one group based on any number of like dots that you connect. So it might be like someone who you feel like is nerdy is one category of people.
Yeah.
Or people who you feel are sporty, or people who you feel are outdoorsy, or whatever.
No, wait,
right?
I don't understand. How's
I'm
that a
not-
stereotype then?
Well, it can be, right? So if you see like a group of people who are like surfer dudes,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
might expect a certain type of behavior from
Right.
them, right? That is
Okay,
a
that's what you're saying.
stereotype,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
And same thing if like if someone likes CrossFit, then I might expect you're gonna be
Them
a
to
bit
like
putty.
CrossFit?
Well, them to like CrossFit,
mean-
but there's a whole like CrossFit subculture. Have you met a CrossFitter before?
I don't actually know what CrossFit is.
Oh, don't you? Oh, so it's like
Isn't it like drills and stuff?
it's a form of exercise where they
Yeah.
have like drills, basically,
Yeah.
specific drills, and like the guys are like super intense about it, and it's like
Right.
a religion, right?
Right.
Like
And so-
vegans.
Like veganism, for
Right.
example.
Okay.
So I feel like it's a way of categorizing people that can be negative sometimes.
Right.
But, not
But I mean,
necessarily.
for me, I don't even like. So I was specifically thinking about, especially in South Africa, because we're such diverse people and we have so many different. What do we call it? Ethnic groups? I don't even know. What is that?
sure.
And we all have these opinions about each other, and I think sometimes they can be just. There are some that are, first of all, I think hilarious, and that's kind of actually why I wanted to talk about it, because it's like,
Sure.
when is it hilarious and when does it start? Are stereotypes in general dangerous, or are some hilarious and then they're fine, or are some maybe even true and and I find that really difficult to gauge, because some things like some stereotypes also get perpetuated because the group in question that is talked about will agree with the stereotype, right?
Sure.
So for instance, like everybody knows, I don't know if you, but like I've heard this from a lot of people, everybody knows that Vendas have the strongest muti. Like they just have the
is
best
it?
magic. Everybody says that. Yeah.
I didn't.
Everybody.
Zulu,
Oh
I've
my
heard
god.
that it's Zulu
Okay, so this is the thing. Like Zulus, because you're Zulu, right?
No,
So
that's just
you-
what I've.
you
Yeah,
feel like
so
Zulus
I've
have the strongest
so
magic.
I've heard the stereotype in like in a negative way.
Oh, okay.
Like, I mean, it's hilarious to me.
Right.
But in like like, oh, don't mess with her, she's Zulu. And specifically like Zulus from KZN. Like apparently the stereotype that I've heard is us women, Zulu women from KZN, use what's it called, ikorobela, which is love potions.
Right,
Sure.
right.
If I'm saying that right. Yeah, and so that's the
To get men.
yes,
Yeah.
or to make them.
So, but
stay.
this is interesting because this, I
And
feel
it's
like
strong.
every group says that about all women, just because
I've
they're
never
like,
heard
I don't
it
know.
about any
I've heard
other-
that. Not
haven't
even
heard
just
it about
within South Africa. I recently heard like Nigerians talking about how like Nigerian women have like strong medicine to like get their men, and like as soon as like there's a guy who maybe cooks for his wife sometimes, then like the family will be like, oh, she bewitched him,
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
You know, I hear that from like a lot of. Okay, well that's interesting because I
interesting.
literally
Never,
I've always heard people say Venda people have the strongest medicine and like they're the most spiritual, like the most the most potent in there, and Vendas will obviously agree with that because it's like because we have the strongest medicine, you know.
medicine or like witchcraft.
Both, yeah, both.
And y'all like,
Yeah.
We got that.
Exactly. Then there's things like this is great. So when we first met, right, doing this film together, were you there when this happened? There was a situation where I kind of stepped into a situation where the makeup artist on this film was talking to the costume guy. And I literally entered the conversation as she was telling the costume guy how ugly Vendas are.
Oh my.
Like blanket statement. Like Vendas are ugly. They're so ugly. She literally said that. And I come into that. I'm Venda, right?
Sure.
My dad is Venda, so I'm Venda. So I come into the situation, but she didn't realize that she was saying this in front of a Venda person, but not only was I Venda, the costume guy that she was saying that to was also Venda, so she was literally...
Which means she wasn't, I don't even think, but even if she knew you were both Venda, I don't think she would have changed her statement.
Yeah.
But
I
you
don't
haven't-
think she would have
wait,
changed it.
Can you tell the story, like flesh it out, like exactly what she said, and even after...
That's literally what she said. She
and
said
then you were
Venda
like,
people
no,
are
but
so...
my cousins are cute, and she was still
And then
like,
she
no.
said no. I said that's
said
not...
no.
So I said, firstly, I'm Venda, and she's like... Right? Because this is the interesting thing about stereotypes as well that happens. Like when you have a certain perception of like a group of people, then generally when somebody doesn't fit into that mold that you have, then they'll be like, no, but you're an exception,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
you're
yeah,
not
yeah,
really.
yeah.
Instead of like rethinking
Yeah.
their perception that they have of a group of people,
Sure.
they'll be like, oh no, but you're different, right?
Yeah.
So that also which is exactly the same thing that happens with racism. As
Yeah.
soon as you don't fit into what a white racist person thinks about black people, they'll be like, yeah, but you're not really black.
Yeah,
That's kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
the general thing that happens with. So she ended up going. So then I said to her, no, but like because then she was like, yeah, but you're mixed, Venda, so then you don't count.
I mean, I heard that.
And then
So she said you even out. Did you say she said you even
she didn't
out?
know. Did I say that? You even
like,
out.
what?
But yeah.
That's like a step, like further.
No, but she was like, well, no, you're mixed, so that's not, you know. And I was like, no, but my family is like, they're beautiful. I would even say I think Vendas are beautiful, which is obviously a biased statement. But like and I told her like I have super beautiful cousins, and I'm literally always trying to like get them to join modeling agencies. And she was like, no, like I need to see proof
Sure.
that a Venda person can be pretty. Literally, that's what she said.
I think that's a South African thing, first of all, and I don't think it's malicious. What I mean by it's a South African thing is that Black South Africans say things that they believe are facts, but without any like malicious intent. Like when I was young, I was really chubby, so I was called Stula, which is translated to fatty, basically. And like when my family or certain people in my family would see me, they'd be like, yes, Dudla, which is hello, fatty. And like, it was never like to make me feel bad. It was just, but you're fat, so you're a fatty. Like, it's just in the...
But
that's what it is.
But that wasn't a
so-
stereotype. That was the truth.
But that's what I'm saying. But the thing is, in her mind, all of the vendors that she's probably seen
Right.
possibly weren't attractive.
No,
So
but
for
that's
her-
I don't even think that's true. I think she saw a lot of Vendas that were attractive, but she didn't recognize them as Vendas because she would have been like, no, but you
Maybe
can't
she
be
just
Vendas.
saw a lot of vendors that were unattractive.
You know what? Honestly, I think with that stereotype, I think that is that has something to do with colorism, for lack of a better word, because I do
Yeah,
think that
100%.
Vendas are generally darker than a lot of other South Africans, and that's just a South African thing to like
Yeah.
to dislike dark skin. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so ingrained in us that I think that's the only thing where I can imagine that comes from. That it's like an anti-black or like a colorism thing.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I don't know if I'd say it's South African. I feel like people around the world have a tendency to have a feeling about something, maybe from personal experience, maybe from the people around them who think a particular way, and their rationality follows the feeling. So you'll think something first, and then you'll look for a bunch of evidence that will support that, and you'll only speak to other people who support your worldview.
Right.
And as you're saying, anytime there's evidence that suggests otherwise, you're going to put that in a special category, or you're going to completely ignore it. So I don't know. I feel like the tendency is, so having done a little bit of like traveling recently, one of the things that I was interested in when I was traveling was sort of seeing what people are like around the world. With just general ideologies, like how do they approach other people, how do they approach conflict, how do they do conflict resolution. And in my very limited experience with travel, I feel like societies all over the world are the same. Like the thing that covers the society, the surface level stuff, is different. It looks a bit different. They're fighting about different stuff. But human beings have like a similar need to belong to one group. And then to make another group an other. And they like finding a common enemy that they can pile up against and argue about. They like to gossip, and they like to say, oh, this person's like this, because that gives them like a sense of, moral superiority over other people. If I can agree with you that so-and-so over there is, in a particular way, and we both don't agree to it, right? It ends up like strengthening our bond. So I feel like with stereotypes, if I say that I believe something to be true about people who do CrossFit, right? I'm just going to come back to CrossFit. If I say I believe something to be true about people who do CrossFit, I'm not going to look for evidence that anyone who says that people who do CrossFit are not like that. I'm not going to look at their evidence. I'm going to look at the experiences that I've had.
I mean, that's just going back to the same thing where like this makeup artist will not see people who are beautiful and Venda as Venda.
Yeah.
Right? That's the
Exactly.
same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just supporting that.
Right.
That argument.
Yeah.
But I think I still struggle to see or to quite understand. If I tell you, like, oh, here's a good example. Like, I came to your house and it was assumed that I was Sotho. Was it Sotho?
Sotho or Tswana.
Sotho or Tswana.
Yeah.
And then when I asked why, it was like, I was like, oh no, I'm Zulu. And then your dad was like, oh, what do you say? Like, Zulus don't look like you, right? What do you say? Something like that. Like, they don't look like you. And I was like, oh, I've actually heard that before. So I guess the stereotype that I actually never realized, but now that I've been in Cape Town, I've heard a lot, is that apparently Zulu people aren't light-skinned, or it's very rare. So a lot of people assume that I'm Xhosa, Tswana, or Sotho. Xhosa I can understand because I'm in the Western Cape. But I do always ask why, and most of the time it's because of my skin tone. Okay. And that's strange to me because I know a lot of light-skinned Zulu people, and I'm just, I don't understand.
It's also hilarious for my dad to say that, who has a light-skinned daughter.
But
because
that's different though.
Is it?
Yeah.
Because he should know that a person looking one way doesn't translate to be.
No, I don't think it would make a difference, because you would obviously be light-skinned because your mom is white and your dad is black.
Yeah, but he doesn't know who your parents are. That's what I'm saying. Like, for him who has a light-skinned daughter, but who is Venda, and who, like, I mean, that's a constant thing. Like, what, like, people ask me, what are you? It's not even like, who are you? It's what are you, right?
Yeah.
For him to having a daughter where that's like the general question, to just make an assumption based on somebody's looks and be like, oh, you look Zulu to me,
I
or
honestly
Sotho
don't see.
Really?
No.
Am I making sense to you?
Yeah, no, I guess so. I mean, I would, my thinking would be a person could probably still fall into having an expectation based on the numbers in South Africa. So
Yeah,
if most
okay,
of the
fine.
time Xhosa people will like have both Xhosa parents, and most of the time Zulu people will have both Zulu parents, then maybe even your dad, who has a daughter who's light skinned, who's Venda,
Right.
might
I mean,
still.
sure. Yeah.
I don't know.
I just
Back
like-
to you. But
I just thought it was weird that he would make an assumption just like looking at you and be like, and he prides himself in like usually knowing
Yeah.
everybody
But
from the
that's what I'm
continent.
saying,
He'll be
but
like, I
that's-
can see exactly
that's
where
what I'm saying.
everybody's
It's
from.
never from a malicious.
No, I
it's
don't
just
think
like
it's
people,
malicious.
because people
Yeah.
just see certain things as facts,
For sure.
and then when they say them, it's just like, oh, interesting. Okay.
No, I don't think most of the time it's malicious. I do think a lot of the time it can become negative, but I think generally it's not. But a friend of mine the other day said this was so random. He said Nigerians don't like to fight, and I was like, what? Like, I don't even understand what, but it was like a real thing to him. He was like, no, every time he's like in Joburg, he'll like see like two Nigerians like arguing and like almost getting into a fight. But then they, like, you know, like when guys like work up into like a
Sure.
fight thing, but they never fight. They just always like
Sure.
Yeah.
do like the, like,
Yeah.
you know,
What is this?
what do you call that? What do you call that when they like
bumping?
just bumping kind of
Sure,
thing?
sure.
So he translates that into Nigerians don't like to fight. Now that's a thing for him.
Okay.
So, which is obviously ridiculous, but it's not like it's not a malicious stereotype, whatever. But he's just like, he now believes Nigerians. That's a thing. It's a thing about Nigerians, you know.
But I think South Africans that have stereotypes of, people from other countries, I don't think you can take that seriously, purely because we don't, like, if he was Nigerian and he said that, I'd be like, okay, but you're South African, so you, like, the
So you don't know anything.
yeah, you've seen
Right.
like a few Nigerians, and in comparison to the whole of
Right.
Nigeria, like, you can't,
Right.
I mean, you can't
Okay,
be
we should have been like
Nigerians.
Nigerians in South Africa.
Yeah, in Joburg. Yeah, rather than I was like, yeah, but if you're like South African, you've never been to Nigeria, and you're like, oh, Nigerians. How do you know that, bro?
Yeah,
You don't, like, nah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
But you wanted to talk specifically about stereotypes within dating or relationships.
I mean, I'm open to you talking about it. I'm interested.
Like,
Basically what I'm saying.
like you found the seed
Yeah.
of what we're talking about. But okay. Okay, continue.
No, I mean, like,
What
take
are the,
over.
what stereotypes have you heard about South Africans?
I've heard, again, with a vendor, because that's just something that I get a lot. Vendor women you should make a vendor woman your wife, because they make great, have you heard that one? Because they make great wives, because they're very like,
And second to that
soft
is
and
Zulu
like
women that have,
cooking,
Yeah.
and, you know, just being the wifey wife.
Sure.
I mean, I'm like the perfect example of that. That's not true.
Sure.
But again, my mom's white, so like,
I was about to say it again.
I don't know, but then what happens? Like when you're of mixed heritage, then what stereotypes do you even fall into? I don't know. Like you just break all stereotypes. But that's like one that I've heard a lot.
What stereotype do you then? I guess whatever like box is being talked about at that time. So for you specifically, if it's like white people can't dance, if you can't dance, then I'll be like, yeah, that's a white side. If you can, then that's say that's a black side. So it's whatever.
But this is interesting
category
because
you fall
in Germany,
what
I would
we're
be
talking
considered black, and then I would be expected to dance because I'm black. But then I can't dance. This is the true thing. Actually, I can't dance. My bum is worthless. It's like sizable, but it can't do anything. Really a problem. It's a disappointment, basically. It's a disappointment. And
So you fall into a stereotype
of white people.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make sense because nobody would read me as white, except for the one time when this actually literally happened. I was getting out of a car. I was parking, getting out of a car. There was a parking attendant, a woman, and then I get out. This was like I had my huge ass afro, right? This is before I shape my head. Huge ass afro. I'm getting out of the car. Like, I'd combed it out even. It was huge. And this woman goes, white people have a lot of hair. And I'm like, what? I don't understand. Like, I was thoroughly confused because I was like, no white woman has ever had a huge ass afro like this, ever in the history of the world.
What's the texture of your hair? Yeah.
It's an afro.
But
it's
like what kind? Because like, is it 4B, 4A?
I never did that. I don't know.
Okay.
That is
Because
specific afro.
no, I mean
no,
most women
because
will
that's
know,
how you
right?
can
I get
probably
it's not
tell the race of a person.
it's not
depending on the
super
texture of their hair.
tight, but it is it's an afro. There's no ways that anybody would ever read my hair as a white person's hair. There's no way. It's like trying to think of an example, like Scary Spice. I don't know why I thought of her first because she was my inspiration for me to actually wear my hair open for the first time when I was a teenager. Like I never, it was always like I wasn't allowed to straighten it, so I would always like, because it's my white hippie mom, so I wasn't allowed to use relaxers and whatever. So I would always like tie it back to the back and like very tight, you know. And then the Spice Girls came around, and then all of a sudden there's this black woman that's wearing an afro, and like it was a huge inspiration to me. And then I started wearing it open. So, but anyways, so maybe it's more like that, you know. But it's not something where somebody would be like, oh, you know, typical white hair. Like definitely not. So, but now she's saying to me, wow, white people have a lot of hair, and I looked at her and I was like, I'm not white. Like, I'm not white. Clearly, I'm not. It doesn't even make sense. Yes, I said that to her.
Sure.
And then she looks at me and she's like, yeah, your teeth are Zulu. I'm like, what?
That's an interesting stereotype.
She literally, that's what I was like. I'm like,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I have never heard anybody say anything
That
about
is news
teeth
to me.
being like specifically for, like teeth or teeth, right?
Yeah.
They're just
Yeah.
like, I have a very large teeth that look very much like a horse's especially when I laugh. But she said that. She's like, oh yeah, your teeth look Zulu, so maybe
That's
you aren't white.
interesting.
Basically, that's what she was saying.
I don't like, what race was this woman who said
She was black, South African.
shame? I don't know if she meant white. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's the word she thought she was saying.
What do you mean?
Because why would someone think you're white? Like,
I
that just
don't
doesn't-
know.
That's
I
what
mean,
I'm saying. I
it's
don't
not the
know
first
if
time that
she-
I've heard somebody say, call me white. It's not generally, like, usually, especially in Cape Town, people, like, well, not really in Cape Town, but, like, in South Africa, people will think, like, maybe coloured, but not,
Yeah, that
like,
makes sense.
That makes sense,
But
right?
white.
But, like, if I go to the village in Limpopo, people will say, there was one time where somebody said, and I was highly offended, and it might have been because of the way that I was sweeping the yard. Somebody walked past and was like, who's this white woman sweeping the yard?
God.
Oh, okay.
How were you
I can get it
speaking
in
there?
that. I can get it in that context then.
It was so hurtful.
Yeah. Your technique must have been all over the place.
It was awful, and also I stopped speaking. I thought I was I was like, I tried a couple of things, and I'm just terrible. It's hard keeping a village clean, like a
Sure.
village yard clean. It's like I don't understand. I
Yeah.
don't even understand where I'm supposed to like
Yeah.
sweep the dust to, and why is the broom so short? And like my back was sore after 3 minutes, and then I just kind of gave up.
Sure.
It was
In that
embarrassing
context, I get why.
that they would say that.
Yeah.
Also because I'm amongst vendors and they're generally so much
Yeah,
target.
apparently, yeah.
But
Bringing it
that
back to
makes
Yeah,
sense
yeah.
though. But like the woman who was just like, yeah. I don't
no,
think that's-
it's weird. I don't know how we got onto that.
Good question.
I don't remember. Let's not even try and backtrack.
But with the wife and I've had this conversation with my friends as well, and I've heard that Venda women are probably the first you should try and marry because they have a lot of respect, they're like submissive and then second to that is Zulu women, and it's for the same reasons.
Submissive.
Submissive and respectful, and they cook and they know how to take care of a man, and then which is like with the Zulu, I can't speak for Venda women, but for Zulu women, I can see where that stereotype comes from, and yeah, I can see where that
You would
comes
say
from.
it's true.
Are
you? I mean, you're a Zulu, so you're a Zulu
So-
woman, so do you fit into that?
I feel like I was raised to be able to be that person. Like my dad I used to wake up first in my entire family. Like I'm not the oldest, but like I'd be the first one to wake up, and we had like a auntie at home who like so, but still I'd wake up before her. I'd bath first and then wake everyone up, and like I was never, you know, allowed to leave the house after 6 o'clock when it was dark. Like go to the movies. My dad would be like, "What kind of a girl leaves the house at 6 o'clock?" Weekends, like if I slept past like 8. My dad would bang on the door. What kind of a girl sleeps? You should be doing this. And so I feel like he partially raised me to be that version of the submissive, like very like version of a Zulu woman. But then on the other hand, he also like was just like, listen, your grades must be must be A+. There's nothing you can't do because you're a woman. But like,
oh, that's interesting.
But what was interesting is, and that's how I think now within the household. And how I feel now is within the household, I would probably behave different to how I would behave outside
in the working space,
and in just like in life. So I'm opinionated and I'm shy, but like if we're in like a situation where I know you, like I have opinions and you're going to hear them, we're going to have discussions. And I found even with new people, if I meet you for the first time and you say something that's just like we're gonna debate for hours, like it's happening. So, but then
who you've had on?
Yeah, like I will go on and I don't stop it. So I'm very like, and at work as well, you see me like I'm scary, not like I'm just like, yo, this is what.
Into it.
But then I feel like in a relationship, I'm not really that person. I just think that there's certain, like I let a man be a man. In the sense that I'd rather you make decisions. I'd rather not all decisions, but like not like. So the way I see it is like if I ask you a question as a man, you must have an answer and you must have an answer quick. Because you're a man, like, you must, you know.
So what you're saying is that's the type of men you're attracted to.
And because if you don't, then I become that person.
Sure.
Okay.
So
which men are you dating then? Is that too personal?
No. I like alpha males. I'm not saying I want a man who's gonna be like, shut up, sit down.
Yeah.
You know, and you can't have an opinion in front of my friends. Like no, not like that. But like not like that. But I like a man who takes charge. Okay. Like that can, you know, that isn't a pushover. And that how do I say this without sounding, not that makes me want to be submissive, but so that I don't have to be the same version of myself that I am outside.
Sure.
Just like, you know,
but that's just because of your job being so like a tough kind of job where you have to be so that you just want to come home and be like, I just want to be a girl.
Yeah, so I need someone who's gonna, like, I remember.
But do you think
one
that
time,
for you that's a cultural thing? Do you think that's because you're Zulu and you feel like
a cultural thing? Like, there's something I always used to say is that if I don't know if I can, not take a man seriously, but I don't know if I can find you attractive if you don't know how to kill a bull.
Kill a bull.
Was it a bull?
Wait, are you being for real? Like,
no,
are you being like?
Real.
No. I mean, are you being like?
No, I'm being for real because I've seen men in my family. I think it was a bull.
Sure.
Someone's like, girl, I feel like you're adding too much spice to your story. It wasn't a bull. But I remember seeing either my father or my brother for umsebenzi, like this tradition, I forgot what ceremony it was, but like jump on this animal, which I think was a bull, but my friends were like, calm down. And just with sorry for anyone, like animal cruelty, I'm sorry, but culture.
It was a chicken,
and he
not
just
a bull,
like,
eh?
and he just, like one time and it was done. No, but this was like a huge
A bull! No,
God,
come on,
it
it takes a lot of people to kill a cow.
No, it doesn't, not for
even.
Zulu men.
Oh, are you serious?
Hanging on
Oh,
to
wait,
some warriors,
wait. A cow.
Okay.
Nah, fam. No. I don't know.
You've got to like hold it down.
No, you really don't. I don't know who
Bull
you're hanging
then. What
out
is a
with.
bull? I'm sorry. Okay, wait.
It's a
Just wait.
stronger
Hold on.
version
I'm not.
of a cow.
Is that the man version?
A bull is a strong.
Yeah, it is. This is like
Okay. So no. Then I'm talking
Yeah.
about the bull. Yeah, then I'm
Yeah.
talking about the bull.
Why
Is that
do
the
you
man
think-
version of a? People have to
What
hold that
culture
down.
is this? Well, in the men.
Okay,
that
so Venda men
Yeah, there we go.
And
so
Xhosa men. I just want to be
stereotype.
clear.
See,
You
there we
also-
go.
Xhosa men. One man, one bull. I
Yeah,
guess.
you never.
Yes, I have
Never.
Guys, I have
Thank
seen.
God.
Oh, I'm sorry. Like,
I
are you?
have seen it.
Then you're like
One
flying
man-
from above, and then you like because there's no way.
So because I saw what I saw, I cannot take.
So you know what?
Y'all
my
think
my
this
assumption
act-
is
yeah,
that
take
you
it.
got it was that bull was bewitched before it was
wasn't.
killed because there's no
No.
way.
There's no other way.
Especially a cow. No, I've seen now. I
No,
can
okay,
honestly
sorry.
say
I'm-
I've seen
'cause I'm
one
confused
person. Well, it's a strong male version of
Male,
a
okay.
bull.
Yeah.
But I've seen with a cow.
Yeah.
One of my uncles or my dad or someone with just one man take it down.
Was your uncle Shaka Zulu?
No,
Because that's the only explanation.
but
for that.
obviously the bloodline is running strong.
Yeah, it runs deep.
But for that reason, I read like the fact that y'all like the fact that
So
you think that
hilarious.
it takes a lot of like I don't know.
I mean, I
like,
would
who
think
these
so.
men
I
are.
I just find that worrying as well. Like I
I'm
don't
like,
like.
yeah, baby.
So that's the type of guy that you want. You want. So basically, what you're saying is you want to date a Zulu guy because they can kill a bull
I
with their
went,
bare
no, I
hands.
went date a Zulu guy.
Okay.
But let me tell you why. No, because and this is why I was asking.
I'm
At
getting
what
hot and
point?
sweaty now.
At
I'm
what
getting
point
nervous.
do stereotypes become
Yeah.
like this terrible thing, and when is it a preference, and when is it like a really bad stereotype? So with Zulu, I don't see myself ever dating a Zulu man because the Zulu men that I grew up around, the Zulu men in my family, are not the type of men I would like to date because of just the way they handle themselves. I
Okay.
don't want that in my life.
Okay.
What do you mean the way they handle themselves?
Again, the Zulu men that I experience. I just
Yeah.
want to make that very clear. Zulu people saying,
Yes.
don't be mad, I'm Zulu, I love being Zulu, you know.
It's too much of the bull
Yeah.
energy.
No,
It's
it's,
just
it's
like a-
not too much of a bull energy. It was just a very abusive nature.
Okay.
And I don't think that has anything to do with being an alpha male.
But do you think that has something to do with being Zulu? Or is that just your family, like the men in your family that you...
I do not want to find out. So I've made that decision
Wow,
for
okay.
myself that I've seen enough. Like, I'm not talking about one man in my family. I'm
Yeah.
talking about, I mean, you all have uncles and so imagine that many and that's what you've seen in all of those many. So maybe it's a stereotype, but for me, it's what I've experienced and I've experienced it enough to not want to have to go through 30 to discover the ones that aren't like that.
So
Like,
you haven't dated Zulu men?
I haven't.
Wow.
And I
Where
don't
did you
think
grow?
I
You
will.
grew up in Durban,
Yeah.
and you never dated Zulu guys.
I didn't date anyone until I was in varsity.
Okay.
My parents
Okay,
had
fine.
it so easy.
Okay, fine. And then you came to Cape Town, and then you but is it like a thing where you're like, oh, you're Zulu, I'm not gonna date, even though you might like find
Yeah.
that person attractive,
Yeah.
you will just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
wow.
I had a
Wow.
crush on this guy, but not a crush enough to like want to date him. But just and then I found out he was Zulu, and I was just like, oh.
Wow. That's intense.
Sure.
That's
I mean,
intense.
yeah, I mean, those things will run deep if you have
Yeah,
experiences
exactly.
from your
And
childhood.
it's just because of the kind that was around.
Right.
Sure.
And I know in my mind that it's not all Zulu men, but
Okay.
I don't want to have to go through what those women went through to find the ones that are good.
That's interesting, man, and very troubling.
No, is it troubling though? Because I know it's not everyone. Like, I'm not saying all Zulu men. I'm very aware that it's a personal experience situation. So I'm not like, oh, Zulu, but I'm just like, I just don't even want to discover. Like, even if you're the next one, it's
But
fine.
you know,
but
it's
there's
like,
someone
but
somewhere
there's
that
but
makes-
there's also this thing of like because you're not the first person that has said something to that effect, right? I know
Yeah.
Xhosa women who say they will never again date Xhosa guys, right? I've heard that.
Yep.
Not from one person, from
Yep.
numerous.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep.
From
No,
numerous.
Are you
I-
closer?
Maybe
Speak for
me.
your man.
And I'm not saying so what I was gonna say though, before you speak for your men,
No, it's okay.
is that I've heard people say these type of things.
What
But
stereotype?
if I
For closer men, have you heard?
mainly cheating kind of stuff.
I just wanted to make this clear. Okay.
Which I think is generally a South African problem,
Yeah.
a South African men thing, but maybe I'm wrong. But also, I just feel that if I did that, if I went by my experiences, then I couldn't date anybody ever again. Then I'd be like, I can't date a white German guy again. can't date a
But then
French Congolese guy again. I can't.
no,
like,
but
I,
there's
you know,
a difference
because
between like, but you haven't dated like 20, right?
So when
Like
What's
if
the
you
cutoff
date like,
number?
but like if you dated 20 whatever men and they're all trash, surely
But the
there's
thing
something
is,
in you
okay,
that's
okay,
like,
okay,
nah, I'm cool.
but I've dated many men, and I'm
Which
not
is
like
fine.
I'm not gonna date
Yeah,
men
but that's
anymore.
different. Which is why I said
Right.
to you, for me, it's because it's family. They were very different. Like
Yeah.
so, I people
Yeah.
from different circles. The thing is, when it's family, it's like people that grew up in a different family, but still you grew up differently. You grew up in a different
Yeah,
city.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've been around different versions of Zulu men, but within my family,
Yeah.
they all had the same two things in common, which was that specific trait and then the fact that they're Zulu. Whereas with what you're saying, dating, you're not gonna experience like the Zulus that you, or not Zulus, like the Germans that you dated might have been from like one specific place,
Right.
and maybe it was like 2 or 3 of them, then you're just
Yeah.
like, I'm not saying throw all of them. But if you get to 20, are you still gonna go back and be like, oh, maybe next time? Then you get to 21, then you're like,
Sure.
ah, shame, maybe. Like, how many times do you also want to learn the same
Yeah,
lesson?
yeah.
Like,
That's hilarious.
alright, guys, I don't need to.
So you're
like,
saying that
learn
there's
the
just
same-
like a group where you're like, I don't even have to give you a chance because I can't, because from what I've seen,
It's just.
it's just too much.
It's there's a
Do you not think, and I would never speak against your experiences.
Yeah.
Because I know those will also run deep, like personal
Yeah.
experiences from
Yeah.
childhood.
Yeah.
But I always like to think that within any culture, one always has to look at like individual examples of people and judge each person by their own merit. I feel like there are behavioral things underlying every person that's going to behave a certain way, right? So if someone shows themselves to be like quite aggressive, quite forceful in the way that they want someone to be submissive, like whatever culture they come from, Zulu, Xhosa, British, whatever, right? I'd probably be like, red flags, right? So if one becomes willing to date outside of their own like cultural group, but then outside of that cultural group, you don't pay attention to those behavioral patterns that might have existed within your own cultural group.
Yeah.
I wonder if, you know, you could end up in a similar position where you have, because I feel like there are certain things that are universal. Like any person who's like, oh, I've met a number of Xhosa men, for example, who are the exception to any rules that anyone might say about Xhosa people.
Like what?
Like, okay, so the cheating thing, for example, right? Sure, yeah, I know a lot of Xhosa guys who cheat. I know a lot of English guys who cheat, white guys who cheat. I also know a lot of Xhosa men who don't, who value family. I know a lot of Xhosa men who are like, kind of like in between in their like devotion to like heavy cultural traditions, and a lot of men who are like devout, like you cannot not do certain things during certain celebrations of the family. So there's always like subtleties and nuances. So I feel like this is just my personal experience, is that within any group you just kind of look at the person that you're dealing with, and you're kind of like, you're from this background, what are you about? Like, how has it molded you as a person?
I've never heard, I hear what you're saying, but I think with situations like this, it's, even though, you know, you can find whatever traits in each different culture, it's the trait that's the strongest, or
That
that's been
sticks out.
experienced the most. And for Xhosas, it's that y'all loose. Xhosa women, that y'all loose. And the interesting thing is, when you tell a Xhosa, when you say this to a Xhosa man, in my experience, I've never had a Xhosa guy ever outright be like, no, that's incorrect. He's like, yeah, well, you know, I mean, there's some that do it, like, they can, because it's everyone's, and that's what everyone says, Xhosa men, Xhosa women from other cultures, and Xhosa men themselves can't deny it because they know they're people. Like, that's, like, and...
I can't even say that's not, like, I don't even know what to do.
But you know that's the stereotype that's...
Sure. But again, all I'm saying is, like, I know exceptions to the rule, and I know that those guys, like...
Wait, but are you saying that is the rule? I'm
No.
finding
You
you
see,
saying
I'm saying-
I'm saying
exception,
that's
which
the
means-
I'm saying that that's the stereotype, right?
Okay, but you're saying that there are exceptions.
Yeah, I
within-
know people who fit. I know people who fit the stereotype, but then it becomes tough now because, like, I know people from various cultures who fit that
But
stereotype.
that's not what we're talking about.
But that's what I'm saying.
These
So
are others.
if for let's say for example, if you said to like a vendor guy, like a lot of vendor men cheat, he probably won't be able to deny it because he'll probably know. Yeah, sure, I know people who cheat who
Yeah.
are vendor guys. Does that mean that vendor guys cheat?
But okay, fair enough. But I think what it is about Xhosas that makes that one be is I used to get trapped by Xhosa guys a lot because I used to listen to Ringo and
Which is so fucking hilarious.
Ringo and
So
like
hilarious.
Ringo.
But
was
I get
like-
it.
You know what I
I
mean?
get
He was
that.
like Nyakodola, Sandela's Tandwa. So like
I get
having,
it.
you know
I
what I
get
mean?
it.
So you're just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god, like when she's not there, the whole oh my god.
Sure.
So, you know, you're just
Yeah.
like, wow.
Okay.
And then, so I feel like Xhosa men also
You
just
guys.
like ride that wave. So you're charming and you're just like, sweet and just like, yeah. But then beneath all of that, all this cheating is happening. And because of all the other great things that you are, you don't, you don't know that the cheating's happening. And so you're just blindsided.
Yeah.
Have you heard this before?
Not to that extent. That was very well put, very eloquently put about how slick we are. But yes, no, I have heard the thing about the cheating. Look, I mean, I don't know what to say. I would imagine that, like, in anyone who was a cheater, they'll probably have that exact same story. So it'll probably be like, if you speak to the girl, she'll be like, yeah, no, it seemed like, it was going well, we were into each other,
not the same.
I believed him. I know someone from university, not a Xhosa person, who was cheated on by this guy. This guy had a double life. Oh, am I leaving?
No, I think it's fine.
This guy had a double life. So he had like another family. So she was from Belgium, I think. And this guy was also from Belgium, but then I can't remember what city is just outside of Belgium, but he worked a lot in this other city. And it eventually materialized that this guy had like a whole other relationship there. He had another email address that this woman that he was communicating with, that he was with on the other side, was emailing him to. He watched porn and masturbated next to her while she was sleeping in bed the one time. He was sitting with a computer screen. But he was like a problematic guy.
Like a normal
where did
relationship, I
he-
don't understand.
Oh,
no,
standard.
but he was
Well,
hiding it and like
yeah, but
being
it was
weird
a
about
Sunday,
it.
so I normally
So-
on a relationship you do it Monday to Saturday, but it was Sunday. I'm joking. Yeah, I'm joking.
Wait,
I
but
literally
where
couldn't
did,
tell
where did she meet this guy? Yeah, in Cape
They
Town.
met in South Africa.
Okay.
I
But
bet you he learned that from Xhosa. Bet you he wasn't like that in
Oh my
Belgium.
god,
maybe he had a
Tara.
lot closer
Bet you he
friends.
came here and he got like Xhosa washed and then became that person.
Closer washing is real.
That
heard
is
about
probably
this.
what
Fucking
happened.
hilarious.
That's
Wow,
probably
you
what happened.
Tara is hurt. Oh my
No,
god,
but the
she
thing,
is
but
hurt.
no, it's
Oh my god, who broke you?
no one broke me. It's just again, like I'm saying, it's such a whenever you talk about stereotypes and dating, that's always the first one that comes to mind is Xhosas. Like that's.
I mean,
always
I've
the-
heard that
that's
a lot from a
always
lot of
the
people,
leading-
and it's very very difficult to fall into that trap of having one experience and then going like, yeah, you were right,
Yeah.
because that's the situation that I'm finding. Because Tara has said this before to me, and I'm tempted to agree with her because I had a very
This is
recent
your
experience where I'm
experience.
like, oh yeah, it makes so much sense. But at the
Can
same
you
time,
agree in the way that it's done? Like, it's not necessarily just the cheating. It's just
well, I mean, the thing is with the person that I'm thinking about, this person is just generally very charming, and I'm not going to attribute to his he's also he's Klubi actually, technically,
okay.
I think,
Exception
anyways-
to the rule.
but which is kind of the same.
Yeah,
Okay, it's close enough. All right. Okay.
It
because isn't Sloby like half?
Yeah, like Sutu and Xhosa, I think.
See,
I don't know.
it's the
I don't know.
It's the closet
Guys,
genes, the
so
closet
it's
genes.
like you'll fall into one or the other. Like with me, like my non-dancing
even
skills
if
fall
you're
into
half,
being
the
one.
closet
That
is
takes
so
over. No, it's very strong. It's powerful.
just makes
That DNA, man.
No, I think you know what. I think we should give Xhosa guys a chance and say step up, and we will
But what's
write that
int-
stereotype off the list once you.
But what's interesting is Xhosa.
You're
so
like,
here's
no,
the
you're
thing.
not willing to
No,
try. It's the
no,
same as
but
Zulu guys.
the thing
So
is-
who are you gonna date then? No,
You're
okay,
running
no
out of
Xhosa's
options.
no
No,
Zulu.
that's just Xhosa. There's Baby, there's Venda,
So is
there's
that where
Sutu,
you-
there's
and then that's
Tswana,
it.
there's
But women-
out of South Africa.
And
like,
the-
guys, there's
Yeah,
a whole
there's-
world
there's
out
out
there.
of
There's
South-
a whole world out there.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that Xhosa women don't even speak for Xhosa men either. Whereas with Zulu women, like a Zulu woman can find a way to make a Zulu man defend a Zulu man when it comes to stereotype.
Okay.
Sure.
Xhosa women don't defend Xhosa men at all. Like, I had a friend who was just like, she posted this thing that said, if you think the devil is a liar, you have never met a Xhosa man. And I'm just like, guys, if it's so bad that your own woman won't defend you, like, then, like, something... And I think this is why I feel so strong.
I mean,
because
I
I've heard
also-
from everywhere. Like,
Yeah,
even
I
your
know.
women won't defend you guys. That's weird, guys. You're, like, y'all need to, like, fix that.
Shame this poor guy. This was not my intention.
No,
when I
it's
invited
okay.
you.
And
It's
this
okay.
is all Xhosa guys'
It's alright.
reaction to this. They don't know how they're
happens a
like, I
lot.
can't fight it because...
so
but that's the
funny.
thing, because you can't fight it because it happens... Why aren't your women defending it? Have you guys asked yourselves?
Well, look, I mean, you say that, but I have heard, so with Zulu men, for example, a negative stereotype that I've heard a few times, with people say they're aggressive, right?
Yeah.
I've heard this from
Yeah.
Zulu women as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know about the defense so much,
Yeah.
because I think what ends up happening a lot of the time is that people will experience a lot of their own culture and get upset with the negative traits that are associated with their own culture. So I have heard a fair number of Xhosa women say, like, I'm never dating a Xhosa man again. But now, yeah, sure, I get that. And if you've had, like, bad experiences, I'm not going to be mad at you, right? But I've heard the same thing from Zulu women before. I imagine, like, if you speak to a lot of Tswana women, maybe they'll say the same thing
But
about
then
Tswana
do
men.
they like, is it like with the Zulu women, is it like, yeah, they're aggressive, I can never date them again? Or they're like, yeah, they're aggressive.
Aggressive, but I like a bull,
Yeah,
a
but
man
like
that
a
can
man.
kill a bull.
Oh, I like her, yeah, exactly. But they can kill a bull, so what are you going to do?
But is that like, because...
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I think it's like, yeah, you get used to like a certain type of behavior and the negative parts of that behavior. Maybe when you get older, you feel like you want to escape it and get away from it. But like, I still firmly believe that within every culture, there are plenty of, I mean, I call them exceptions as if there's one or two, but I think there's whole groups of people who are not in a particular way inclined. But as you say, a particular idea will stick about a group of people, and then that becomes the way that you see them in general. But I think in every group, you're going to find every type of every
What is
person.
the most absurd stereotype that you've ever heard about a certain group of people?
About, let's give Xhosa men a chance to rise. But
I
what you've
heard-
heard about Xhosa men, what's like
The
the,
most
wildest,
absurd.
yeah, where you're just like, okay guys, come on.
I don't know if I've heard like crazy stuff about Xhosa
Because
men.
the truth is
I've
the
heard-
only stereotype you've heard.
Well, a lot of people have said they can be quite aggressive, not in
Oh, really?
comparison to Zulu men, but a lot of people have said Xhosa men can be, well, I've heard. Cheating, yeah, just stuff about being very
Can I
romantic.
just ask you
but the language maybe
a
being
question.
very
Like,
romantic.
where did you grow up in Cape Town?
East London.
Okay.
So very close, East London. Yeah, I don't think if I've heard. I mean, the most absurd thing that I've heard is that people in Limpopo, like just the witchcraft in Limpopo is so next level that people can send electricity via SMS. That was the craziest thing I've ever heard about any island. Apparently, witchcraft in Limpopo
love
is
that. That would be amazing, and I wish I could do that.
full on.
That is a
electricity.
power that I want.
Yeah. You can send whole lightning bolts.
That
via
would be
SMS.
amazing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if
Yeah.
that's true somewhere, somehow.
I mean, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
What stereotypes, you seem very diplomatic, so I don't know if you're going to answer this, honestly, but what stereotypes of women would you agree with? Or that you
Oh.
personally... Because now there's two of us and I've been going on about Xhosa, and she's agreed.
Bruh.
But like, I want you to be honest.
Do
Like,
I agree with?
Or like the same way I've felt as passionately as I have.
So I mean, I think I'll do the same thing and just
Okay.
kind of speak to the groups that I would have been around the most when I was
Okay.
younger.
Okay.
So, and this, I'm not saying this is a negative thing,
Okay.
but Xhosa women, I think, can be feisty.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
Feisty.
Yeah, I've
That's,
heard that a lot.
that's
Yeah.
all I'll say.
This is so
Feisty
interesting.
in what way, though?
Big personalities, right? And not afraid of getting in your
He's
face.
so diplomatic. He's so diplomatic.
Well, the reason why I'm choosing my words carefully is because, but this is...
No, I like it. I think it's good because
Yeah.
it's nice.
Well,
it's nice.
But the reason why is because I feel like this is kind of the center of this conversation, which you opened with earlier on, which is stereotypes that can be dangerous, right?
And you know what's interesting? I was talking to a friend about this the other day, and I find it interesting because what happens, or what I'm seeing a lot that happens, especially in terms of these like stereotypes within relationships, is that I know a lot of Xhosa women that refuse to date Xhosa guys, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But and for similar reasons, because Xhosa women are like, no, they cheat or whatever, and then but they have the same thing, and like, oh, they're aggressive and they cheat as well, and like whatever.
Sure.
And so what happens is that these people that don't want that type of relationship branch out, and
Sure.
from my experience, just because I have that Europe South Africa connection, will date white partners.
Yeah.
So you have these two cool Xhosa people that will never find each other because they're both not willing
Sure,
to
trying
date.
to
Do you know?
escape.
Does
We're
that
meant
make
to be
sense? What I'm saying?
together, though, yeah.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is that because you do make a lot of conscious decisions sometimes, or even subconscious decisions, where in terms of dating, where you know that where you just don't even look in a certain place because you're like, this is not, you know. You might miss somebody, and then you continue making these brash statements about that group
Sure.
because you're not willing to see
Past
those people.
what you-
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
What I'm saying?
absolutely.
But I think if you know what your triggers are, I don't see why you need to try and find the opposite
Agreed.
of that trigger.
If
in
nobody's
that thing.
trying to force you to
No,
date
no,
a
but
Zulu guy.
but what I'm saying is like you're saying like, oh, these Xhosa people will never find each other. If your trigger is another Xhosa person because of what you've heard,
Yeah, but
then
it's
just
not
leave
that
it alone.
individual. It's whatever they associate with that group of people, which is obviously based on like past experience that they've had.
Yeah.
But it will limit you in terms of maybe meeting somebody that would be perfect.
But
And
that's
that has
fine
exactly
because
the same type of
otherwise what's going to
experience.
happen is if you already have that in your mindset and then you try and date a Xhosa person or a Zulu person or whatever, and you already have whatever stereotype
Yeah.
is that you have, is that you're going to start seeing those things in the relationship even though they're not there. Like if you constantly have told yourself or have heard that all Xhosa men cheat, when you meet a nice Xhosa man, if he doesn't answer your phone call one time, or he doesn't, in your mind you're already like, you see,
But that's the same with racism. That's what I'm saying. It functions in such a similar way because you'll have exactly the same thing with racism. You have like a black person do something, or a white whatever. If you're white, if you're a white racist, then you'll have like a black person do something where you're like, that's exactly what black people. Do you know? So you wait for that to happen, and then you.
I think
Look for opportunities.
Yeah.
I think though, in terms of stereotypes, relationships and racism, I don't think, for me personally, I would hold that in the same
Category.
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
So you say
I don't think it's in relationships is as detrimental as it is, which is why I was saying. And then when is it becoming preference, right? So like I said to you, I know all Zulu men aren't like that, but it has now become my preference to not date Zulu. So when is it like, oh my God, you're just stereotyping all of them, and okay, so that's your preference because that's what you've experienced. Whereas with racism, there's no preference situation when it comes to stereotype. It's just you stereotyping people.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think I would think that like
Sure.
maybe,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. I would think that maybe it's not like absolutely. Maybe it's not a bad thing. So maybe the way that we're thinking about stereotypes is as a negative thing, right? I don't necessarily think of them like that. I think it's a way of categorizing that can be bad, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, if I'm watching a stand-up comedy show and someone's making jokes about Xhosa men, and that guy happens to be Xhosa himself, then I probably won't be offended because I'm like, he's making sweeping statements from personal experiences that he's had, that I will have shared, that we will find commonly funny and stuff because we've both seen this stuff, right? That same thing can be flipped on its head if a white person's standing on stage making the same statements.
Yeah.
Because suddenly, like, what are your experiences really now? You're just, So I
But
just...
then those same stereotypes that were funny in the other situation become racism, right? Isn't that what happens then?
Yeah.
Well, I think... God, it's deep now.
But is it not because, like I said, you can't, when it comes to like stereotypes on races, there's no line between stereotype and preference.
There's no line.
Because like I'm saying, like within a relationship perspective, you can say I don't date Zulu guys because of the stereotypes, and I'll say I don't date Zulu guys because of my experiences, so I prefer not to. And then you'll just be like, no, it's because of stereotypes. And I'm like, no, because of experience and preference. But you can't say with whole races, you can't say like I prefer white people because with my experience, black people.
I think it's very similar.
But don't you think it kind of becomes similar?
No.
I think it's very similar.
Because also you're talking
almost
about
exactly the same
no,
thing.
Races way.
There's just more
exactly.
black people
so
than there are
say,
Zulu people. So
but
it's
that's
just
what
by
I'm
virtue
saying.
of numbers.
So, and we're also the same way with like stereotypes. You have to keep breaking them down. So it's not all black men cheat. It's all Xhosa men cheat. Like you have to break it to be able to like stereotype in a way that isn't that's just
General.
stereotypical and not like anything to do with preference. You have to like break it down to a smaller.
But how far? To that
It
individual.
has to be to the individual.
No, it doesn't
That's
have
the
to. It
thing.
doesn't. It can be like you can say like Xhosas that grew up in the Eastern Cape and Xhosas that grew up in the Western Cape, which is what a lot of people do. Where like there's some people who are like, yeah, but I don't know if Xhosas that grew up in the, or they'll say Xhosas or whatever, but the ones that grew up in the Eastern Cape aren't like that, but the ones that grew up in the Western Cape are like that because they haven't experienced the real or whatever that they do. And it's the same as in Durban, like a Zulu person born and raised in KZN, a lot of the times is looked at different to a Zulu person that was born and raised in Joburg.
Sure.
So the stereotypes will come from breaking, like certain stereotypes come from breaking it down to.
But like in your situation, for instance, have you done that? Is it like you're like, no, Zulu?
Yeah, I've
urban
seen
Zulu guys
a very like simple example for me is that a lot of Zulus that I know that are from KZN will say Golda, and Joburg Zulus say Golda because they can't say the clip.
Yeah, but for you, in your dating preference, are you applying it in that same way where you're like, I don't date because you grew up in an urban setting, right? You're from Durban.
But KZN.
But so would you be like, oh, okay, I don't date urban Zulu guys, but you would date rurals?
No.
So, but then wouldn't
I'm
you think
confused.
then that it would still be, so again, like I'm not using the word, I'm using stereotype as a neutral word just to mean categorizing, right? Don't you think it is still categorizing? Because I think like stereotyping would be any process of overlaying general rules on any group of people. So even if it's like 10 people and you're like, I wouldn't do this with those 10 people over there because they're like this. But you don't actually know the individuals in that group of 10. You're just like, no, I have an idea of what's going on with those 10 people. They're like this, so I won't do X with them. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, maybe I'm not saying this the way, but in my head, I don't know why then, but in my head, it's like, I don't think that the two are similar.
Sure.
Or not similar, but I don't think they as, like...
Detrimental?
Yeah, like, I don't think...
Okay. Sure. Well, I think if
race and like,
if it's
dating
a
stereotypes.
personal decision, then I don't think it probably doesn't have as much potential to be as toxic and damaging to people. If you decide, for myself, I'm not going to do this, I guess maybe the difference with racism is it becomes like a more productive force that goes outwards.
I think
and
with
you do things and say things to people.
and
but
also
this becomes
someone's
productive because
but
you've literally
someone's-
now warned me of
But
a whole
that's-
group of people.
But the difference,
where I'm like, oh, maybe I need to.
Yeah.
It becomes a thing. It does take.
but the difference between stereotyping in a racial sense and stereotyping in like a dating or like the other sense is that all that's going to happen is that you're not going to date that specific group of people. But with racism, people can die because of your specific. People cannot get hired for jobs. People can lose their everything. People can die. People can, you know what I mean.
But I
Whereas
maybe
with
don't
dating,
wanna...
the worst that can happen is you're not gonna date.
But also maybe I don't want
to.
Maybe I don't want to hire somebody because they cheat on their.
Yeah, exactly. You
But
don't have to some in now. Because you're like,
What if he
yeah.
cheats as an employer? What if he cheats on my company? Like, does that translate? I don't
Then
know.
you're insane.
Then
You're an insane person. Then you're an insane person. But that will. I don't think that will ever. Like, that's the difference to me. That's like stereotypes in the sense to me are always funny. I just find them very funny. Even the stereotypes that I've heard about women.
Please tell me what is the most absurd stereotype that you've been hearing?
The light skin Zulu thing was like, oh really? I didn't know that. The other one was that Zulu girls, and someone specifically said from Durban, love money, so we'll like date for like money. What are the weird ones that I've heard about it?
I've heard that a lot as well.
Yeah, I think that's just it that I've heard. But like, we really love money, but like really badly, like shamelessly.
Sure.
This is confusing.
Go
Maybe
after
I'm
men
Zulu.
of money.
Having difficulty processing.
Am I Zulu? I really like money.
But I haven't heard any really bad ones. But one that I was really like was the one that we're super submissive, and so you should do this if you just want someone who's gonna do whatever you say.
Sure.
But I don't think I'm like that.
Yeah.
I do think that there's probably certain like ideas that I have. Like I would probably cook for my man as much as I can. Like some people are just like, girl, you ain't a slave. But
to be fair, I
me.
like that, but then I want him to do the dishes just because I hate doing the dishes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like for me, I think I know a woman these days don't like to cook or whatever, and to me personally, that's weird. I'm just like,
right. But you also like I would hate to be with someone who doesn't know how to cook.
Yeah.
Like if you're coming home from set and you've worked like insane hours, you want the guy to have cooked something, right? If he'd been home.
My thing is,
you would.
What? I don't really. But no. Wait, I haven't finished. I don't necessarily expect you to cook, but I'm not gonna cook, so you need to find something first to eat. So you can get takeaways. I don't care. You don't have to cook for me.
But I want homemade food.
If you can't cook, that's fine. I honestly don't care. I love to cook, so it's fine. I'll do it but when I don't want to, then something else must happen. It doesn't necessarily.
Not that he's like,
Also, I'm a foodie, so I don't want trash food. I don't want to every time you cook, be like, it's so good, and like I secretly hate you. I don't want that in my life. So just get takeaways.
Yeah. Okay. I guess. Yeah. That's great.
But like I like this is probably part of a stereotype, I guess. But like I don't like the idea of another woman cooking for my man. Like that doesn't make sense to me.
Sure.
And I
think we need to do another podcast about relationships because
that doesn't make sense for me.
What do you mean, like at a restaurant?
No, that's different. But like that's different.
Restaurant food. If it's from a woman.
That's fine. That's
That would
fine.
be amazing.
But like if you are like going to Tandi's house for dinner, just enjoy. I'll be like, but why?
But like if it's a group of people.
No, that's different.
Sure.
So you don't want one woman cooking for him.
Like also
that does sound like
but also like even like if you have like auntie that's like at home, like why is like cooking? why is she cooking
Sure.
for your man?
Sure.
And if she's cooking for the house versus like.
Sure.
And that's a thing that's been like in my head from like Zulu women that it's just like, but why is
this is so
someone,
amazing.
like,
we need to definitely talk about that.
doing that for your
Okay,
man?
very
That's your
interesting.
job. And I know again it's cooking for the family, but it's like that's your job as his
Oh
woman.
my god.
And I have that mentality as well, which is why when like women my age are like, nah, I don't want to cook. I'm just like, so who's cooking for your man? Why aren't you?
That's what because I'm just like, but who's cooking for you yourself? Because I want to eat. But,
For you,
because
for like
for me, no me. Like if somebody says that they can't cook, I'm not like, but what is your man eating? I'm like, but what are you eating? Like, how are you?
Sure.
Are you confused right now? You're like, what?
Yeah,
What do you mean?
Yeah, I'm just like, what's your man eating, girl?
Oh my god! Wow, Tara, I'm so confused.
That's the thing.
I'm
like,
so confused.
Someone said
You are
I'm
blowing
like,
my
someone
mind.
said I'm like 70% feminine and like 30% traditional, and I was like, okay.
Feminine.
A feminist.
feminist.
Sorry, a feminist.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm 70%.
You girl, this
70% a feminist and like 30% a traditional.
Traditional. Okay.
Like another thing
This
is
is
like
so
I don't
funny.
want the same way like I'm like, cook for a man or whatever. I don't believe I ever have to touch anything that's gonna make my hands dirty, like trash.
Sure.
If I have a man, I don't see why I'm like touching trash or
Okay.
like any like dirty things.
Do you wanna? Are you with somebody? Are you?
Mm-mm.
Do you
But let me tell you why. Because of the way
So,
I was raised. No.
anyway.
No, because of the way I was raised. Because my dad and my
Yeah.
household, we were like, I feel like I was taught a lot to do like the wifely, womanly
Yeah.
things, and there were categories. Like I never touched the trash. Like I could be standing next to the bin and it's overflowing, or I can put the last thing that's gonna make the bin overflow. But my dad would never be like, "Why are you putting that in there? Like take the trash out." It's
Sure.
about it. He'd call my brothers to come and take it out,
Mm,
because that's like a boy's job.
interesting.
And again, my dad is very traditional Zulu, so there was like like the boys were never cooking. That was never a thing in our house. It was I was cooking, the women in our family. If there were dishes, I remember there were times where I'd wash the dishes, I'd go to sleep, and one of my brothers like came and like left, the dishes, and my dad would wake me up and be like, "Why are there dishes in the sink?" And I'm just like, "But I just washed the dishes, like
Eesh.
not my dish." Or I'd be chilling and it'll be like, "There's dishes in the sink," and then I'd be like, and my mom managed to like take
Yeah.
that down to she's done her part.
Yeah.
Now they have messed it up. Like
Yeah.
you can't expect her to keep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like there were certain things that were like in the household for the guys and for the.
Do you feel like those sort of roles were problematic for you, or do you feel now they're problematic and try and unlearn them, or you just kind of like, this is what it is?
No,
and
didn't you
someone
just
like
hear
this?
her?
No,
She
I
wants
think it's
a
great.
man to take out the trash.
Well, yeah,
she's
sure.
very
Okay.
clear.
All right.
I think
That's fair.
at the time it was annoying, but now I really like.
Settled
I'm like,
into it.
yeah. I'm like, it's cool. Like the fact that he would make sure that I wasn't sleeping past. Because then my brother was the opposite. My brother
It's
would
great
then
for
sleep
like
until like
for
12
you being
and
an
1.
AD now.
But just in
It's
life
perfect.
in general, like
Yeah.
I can't sleep past a certain time now.
Mm.
Like I have to be proactive, which is good in general.
At the same time.
So I think it was annoying then, but
Yeah.
now I think it's cool.
Yeah.
And not that the people that I date, like I dated someone who I'm a messy person in my room. So it's not dirty, but it's messy. I know if you want something, I know exactly where it is, but it's not like
Right,
Yeah,
I
the
see what you're
system.
saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I was dating someone who was very about systems and about. And,
Well, can I ask what background this someone had?
he was closer.
Ah,
Yeah.
my
He was,
people.
yeah, your people.
You know how to feel
Your
them.
people. So
Yeah.
he would clean my room,
Oh, that's
like
nice.
without me asking. Like he'd come back and he would have like.
So he would clean your room, but he would also cheat. Is that? Is that what?
Yeah,
I'm
that
so
was-
sorry.
You
That
can't
was
get
like
everything.
that was the trade-off.
Yeah.
I'll cheat on you sometimes,
You
but
don't
I
want
will.
everything from us.
You know what I mean? I was like,
clean
oh,
the
but he
room
cleans
and
my
not cheat. That's
room.
crazy.
That's a tough one.
Yeah,
That's
you
a
know,
tough
so,
one for sure.
I mean, I don't do it, so someone has to.
Sure.
But yeah,
Oh
so
my
there's
gosh.
like, I'm not saying I want someone who's gonna, but the problem was that he ended up like expecting me to cook all the time. Like there was one time I was sick and he was like, "But what are we gonna eat?" And I was like,
Ow.
But like I'm sick, like you can see that like my eyes are dying and my soul's crashed. Like I'm physically sick. I can't do anything.
Sure,
and you have the nerve to be like, what are we gonna eat?
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
So I don't want someone who expects that of me, but I want to. As soon as it starts becoming like an expectation.
I don't. You don't have to answer this, but is your girlfriend white?
Yes, she is. She's from Belgium.
I just made that
Did you
assumption,
know that?
and I was
Did
right.
you?
No, I didn't know that. I just made that because I know that you were saying that you were gonna fetch your girlfriend
From the airport.
from somewhere, and I just through our conversing these past couple of days.
No, she is.
Inkling, is that a word? That your girlfriend might be white?
Yeah, inkling is a full-on word. No, she is. But look, I mean, I imagine like, so in our relationship, you
Why are you saying it like that? Like, yeah, I know y'all. Like, I could tell.
You had a very thought-so face as soon as I said that. You know,
Yeah. No, okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's
continue,
okay.
But
I
did think so.
Yeah, okay. No.
What made you
What gave it away?
I don't know, I just had this feeling.
Is it the glasses? The hair? I've been told that my glasses give off a very I'm dating a white woman look. You know?
That is
Is that a joke? Okay,
hilarious.
'cause I'm
That
like,
is so funny.
No, yeah. She's from Belgium, and I mean, I feel like every relationship is going to be a negotiation. So, like between her and I, there's obviously like cultural differences between how I experienced growing up. In a similar thing, my dad had certain expectations of me and certain expectations of the girls. I do not think I ever washed a dish until I arrived at university.
Yeah.
And I took it for granted. But when I got to university, I obviously started
Oh my
studying
god,
this.
who was washing?
The women in the family.
Oh my god, I can't even deal with this.
And you
Not
see,
a
that's
single
not a
one.
specific, and that's not a specific to culture thing.
No,
I
that's
think,
like across the board,
Yeah,
South
black South
Africans.
African men
Sure.
in
In general.
households are treated
I
like
can't
kings.
stop.
Yeah.
It's your mothers, your aunties,
Yeah.
your sisters, or whatever that are expected to cook for you, make you sandwiches when you're hungry, do the dishes.
Yeah.
And some people are very extreme and make it to like if you're hungry, like your sister. But
Sure.
we weren't like that, thank God.
Sure.
But that's not just like a. That's
No, I know that from my family as well.
Yeah. So that stuff like resonates. My sisters also like woken up because they have to do the dishes.
Yeah.
My sisters cooked a lot. They're very good cooks now. But when
Can
they
you cook?
Not really.
Oh my god.
My
It's-
dad
I
could
mean-
cook. My dad could cook. My
Okay, that's
dad
good.
could.
I mean, my dad could fry.
Throw. That's
He could fry. That's,
That's
it. He could fry,
great.
but he could not cook.
Wow.
Was your
So-
mom ever not at home? Like, did she ever go to?
Yeah.
camp?
So when I kind of
What
look
would
back
you
on
do?
it, I have mixed feelings about it. Well, okay. So there was also this who was helping out around the house. So she.
Can I just say
took a lot-
quickly, because I don't know how much time we've, just because I said 1 hour, but now I'm like,
1 hour, 20 minutes.
okay, we should wrap it up,
Okay,
probably,
let's-
right? But we can
yeah.
have us continue the conversation,
Sure.
but also we should wrap this up,
Sure.
I think.
No.
Do you want to say, is it like a...
No, it's not pertinent. I was just going to echo some of the stuff that you were saying.
okay.
Like I
Yeah.
saw a lot of it, and then like, and so all I was going to, the point that I was making is like, I think in any relationship that you get into, like it ends up becoming a negotiation of you start finding out like what the other person's background is, what your background is, and where you're willing to compromise. Now, if you're willing to compromise, or you can just find someone who's like completely in harmony with you, like. If you prefer a man who likes taking the lead, and who's, I don't know if you prefer your men not to cook at all, like you prefer them to be like, I don't
If
want
you,
to cook.
I'd like to teach you. I don't want bad food. I don't
Sure,
want to have
sure,
to
sure.
pretend that I like your food.
Sure.
So you can try once. If it's really
If
bad,
it's bad,
then I'll
then
be like,
stop.
no. I'll be like, let's cook
Let
together.
me do it. Yeah,
no,
yeah.
let's cook together.
Okay.
So I will teach you
Yeah.
how to cook.
Sure.
But I don't want you to make me trash food.
Sure.
I
But
feel very strongly about
but I feel no. I see this.
Which is also hilarious, because Tara
That's
says
very
she's a
strong.
foodie, and you are, but
Yeah.
you also eat like one bite of your food, and then it's like, you're finished.
Yeah,
You
but
eat
then
like
I eat
a
it again
mouse.
half an hour later. I just eat
I
a little
haven't
bit.
seen proof of that, but okay, if you say so.
And
She one bite, guys.
Yeah, I do.
One bite.
I eat
one
like
bite kind of
very-
girl.
And she spends so much money on food, but like it's it's
But I
hilarious.
take it home.
You're a foodie.
Yeah, you do. That's great.
Oh, we
gotta
digress.
spend it.
Do we want to say one last thing for
Can I just
people?
say one
Because-
thing that's very interesting?
Yeah.
We haven't spoken about any other cultures except for Zulu and Xhosa.
Yeah. Well, and Venda's a little bit.
And vendors a little bit, but not stereotypes about
Yeah.
men. So do you think that's because, like, Zulu and Xhosa, are they the biggest cultural groups in this country?
I think Zulu is the most spoken language, so Zulu. would be
Okay, and
huge.
then second is Xhosa.
I mean, it's also because of where we are here. And
Western Cape and also East London for me, like I guess the length of the history between Zulu and Xhosa people, where there's been conflict at times, particularly politically, not that long ago in KZN, lends people to talking in Xhosa circles. People talk more about Zulu people than they might.
But
other
also,
people.
guys, I also think that it has something like I don't know anybody that's going like, oh, you know, Sutu guys are just so.
And
like,
that's why I'm asking.
I think it does have something to do with that.
I don't think it's because they aren't stereotypes. but
No, they probably are, but they're nicer. They're not. They don't become this thing of like, oh, I don't date.
not a negative-
I've never
it's
heard
not a
somebody say
negative.
I don't date Sutu guys anymore. It's more like I don't date Zulu guys anymore. I will date Pedi guys
Sure.
because they're like like softer, like not not so.
I honestly haven't heard I haven't heard any negative stereotypes or like a stereotype in general. I think about other than Zulu and Xhosa. I've heard that they're sweet, they're soft, they're not aggressive, they're not cheap. Like I've heard what.
But that's just in comparison
Yeah.
to like Zulu guys.
but
and
I've
Xhosa guys,
never
and
really heard.
That's what. Yeah, that's. We've got to make it this a bigger round next time.
Yeah, I
and
think
have
we
more
should
people
have
present.
Every
This was a very This was very
like a round table.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. That would be interesting, actually.
Because I'd honestly like to know what stereotypes there are about other.
Yeah. Okay, great. I think we should wrap it up because we have been talking for a really long time and we could go on forever because there are endless stereotypes about people, I guess. And last words. Anybody got something?
Oh yeah, I mean, I would say I think stereotypes exist. I don't necessarily think they are always a bad thing. I always feel like people have to negotiate stereotypes because they directly influence like human relationships, and influence people's perceptions of other people and how people perceive you based on the stereotypes that you have. So I think it's always a negotiation of you kind of have to constantly evaluate like your own beliefs and the way that you see the world, just for your own sake.
Okay. Should we leave it at that, or do you?
Do
Do you want to just apologize to all?
Yeah,
of
no,
us?
what I was gonna say, I stand by what I said.
Doubling down, guys.
No
She's
one.
doubling down.
Stand by what I said, but that has never made me not like the people that I've dated have been Xhosa.
What you? Okay.
So
I thought you were
it's-
gonna say, but I have Xhosa friends, guys.
No. Like
Like a white racist, I have
no,
my
yeah,
friends.
exactly. No, not that. I've dated the guy that I dated was Xhosa, and the relationships I've had have been Xhosa guys. So I like that stereotype,
But
hasn't
no
deterred-
longer.
hasn't deterred me from Xhosa men. Is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So I hear the stereotype, I speak about the stereotype, but that hasn't deterred me from.
Okay.
And Zulu
So
men,
there's
I'm
hope.
sure there are good Zulu men out there.
One or two among you.
No, there's a lot. It's just my personal experience there's a trauma that can unfortunately.
I wish this were live and we could have like people call in.
That
And
would
then
be-
we should
yeah, that
definitely
would
do
be
that
fun.
one day.
That
Okay,
would-
for the future. Thank you
Sure.
for listening, watching, whatevs. Yeah, until next time.